All right. And we are live right now. Let's make sure. Yep, we are live. All right. Hey guys, yeah, I'm doing an interview with Dr. Michelle Lino. She's a TV psychologist based out of Farmington Hills, Michigan. She's a highly sought after therapist. And Dr. Michelle, can you give us, our listeners, a little bit about your background and where can your viewers see your television show and as well as the streaming times?
Yes, of course. I am a licensed psychologist. I've been practicing for many years now, over 20 years, it seems like now. And I work all throughout Michigan. So Oakland, Macomb, Wayne County. I provide therapy and consulting services. My primary office is in Farmington Hills on Orchard Lake Road, but I have been all over the place. I am the owner of DML Psychological Services. That's a business that I've had for several years now. And I am also, as you mentioned, Stephen, the TV host of Mind Matters with Dr. Michelle, and that airs weekly. You can watch it every Saturday on TV20 Detroit. We also have some streaming platforms, including Flix TV and Las Vegas TV. If you follow the website, I would encourage you to follow either our website or social media because I always post the different ways you can watch the show. And hopefully many of you are watching by now.
All right. And I just want to, there was a comment left unanswered. I know, we don't want to, there's Pauline Pyers. She made a comment the other day, said, I have tinnitus and I'm struggling with anxiety. Any ideas on how to cope or medication I can use?
Yes, so I'll probably give many disclaimers throughout this interview, but what I will say, Pauline, is first and foremost, if you have not already, please do talk with your primary care physician or the person who's been helping you manage your pain, because that's so important. Many people experience anxiety and depression as a result of their physical health. And so if we can just get that taken care of, then that would help. Also, I'm not sure if you've gone through any physical therapy or if you've learned of any exercises that you can do to help with it, because sometimes medication, although it can be soothing, it does have limits. So I would say find some helpful exercises. Believe it or not, YouTube is a great resource for finding doctors who will tell you tips on managing with or without medication. So but first, make sure, get it tested, make sure there's nothing else that you need to have done, but otherwise find some coping techniques that you can use at home. And again, YouTube has some excellent resources. I use it myself. I go to YouTube to figure out how to manage some things without medication.
Use YouTube for everything. And,
Everything. Also, what I can't believe I left this part out. I am a big fan of acupuncture. So if you have not tried already, acupuncture can heal. It could help you cope with something, and sometimes it can help remove that pain altogether. So if you have not tried acupuncture, find a skilled, trained, licensed acupuncturist that can help you.
yeah, I didn't know acupuncture was, yeah, I might try that because usually, I just kind of pretty much be quiet, like lock myself in a room, be quiet, listen to music. Everybody has their own different ways of, relieving stress, anxiety, stuff like that. So,
Yep, and that's just it. You find what works for you, because once you find what works for you, that'll be your go-to for everything. It's like you create a little handbook of cures that work just for Pauline, that works just for Steve, and that's what I recommend. Find what works for you and hold on to that. That becomes your Bible.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to get into our topic today, individuals who refuse counseling because they believe that therapy is for crazy people. So, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, I know a lot of people, they like, man, I don't need counseling. I can handle it myself. I can do this myself. All I need is to just be quiet, man. I just do this myself. So what do you say? Like, how do you like convince people? Like, when will someone know, hey, I need counseling? Like, what needs to happen?
Well, I want to say, first of all, that is a common thought when I tell people that I'm a psychologist. I mean, even if it's just a social event, and sometimes they go, "Oh, you talk to crazy people," or "Oh, you're trying to diagnose me." And yeah, there are some occupational hazards. There are some things that just happen automatically, even when you're away from work. But actually going to therapy or deciding to go to therapy is it is so far from, like, it's just the opposite of crazy. It takes a lot of insight to say I need some help. It takes insight, it takes strength, it takes, just self-awareness to be able to say that. So don't ever think that you are crazy because you're saying I need help. Actually, the person who doesn't know that they need help and who doesn't recognize the signs, I'm not going to say they're crazy, but that person may be lacking in insight. And insight is something that takes time to build. Sometimes we get it, sometimes we never get it. So I would say, now you said that, you may say that I don't need therapy. This is what I do. If that works for you, great. What I always tell people, not everything is about psychotherapy, and psychotherapy is what we engage in when we go to sit down and we talk to a licensed mental health professional. We may consider that psychotherapy. You may not need that. That may not work for you. I'm here sitting as a psychologist saying that that may not work for you, but you must incorporate something therapeutic into your life. So if you're telling me that, I'm having all these issues, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I don't want to get out of bed in the morning, I don't have any motivation, I'm going to ask you, okay, so what are you doing about it? Oh, it'll just go away. Maybe, maybe not. A week has passed and you're still not getting out of bed. You still don't want to shower. You still don't want to take care of yourself. You're neglecting your kids and your family. What are you going to do about it? If you have no answers, I'm going to say, just to get the ball rolling, maybe talk to a therapist. Now, another person may have answers for me. They may say, you know what, when I'm getting stressed out, I do yoga. I I do some other form of exercise. I take walks. So again, that's having the insight. So there are people who can cope without going to therapy. Then there are people who just need, think of your therapist as like a coach, right? That person helps you get through things. And there's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with that. And that's not crazy at all. Trust me, it's not.
Right. Yeah, it's just some people are just they feel like it's a chore. I don't know whether it's, or they'll make an excuse like, oh, I don't have the money for it, which is understandable. But like you said, acupuncture, I never knew that. Like that, like how does that acupuncture, does that like help with like more like physical or like emotions? Like how does,
Both, it can. So I'm planning on having my acupuncturist on the show. I've seen Dr. Wang. I've seen her for many years now. She's in West Bloomfield. And so when you go to acupuncture, I can't even describe. So there's these tiny needles that they place in, and they work with the energy. There's something about, they know where to place the needles depending on your specific problem. And that's why it's so important to go to somebody who's really trained at this, because they know exactly. You tell them what's going on and they're going to help you. So it really helps you to relax. And what happens when we're anxious, we're usually not relaxed. You know, we try to separate the mind and body, but everything's connected. And so if I'm feeling anxious, chances are my heart rate may be either increased or decreased. Like different things can happen. I may have pain. I may feel maybe sweaty palms or something. But what happens when you go to acupuncture, every single time I go, I feel so at ease. Sometimes I fall asleep on the table. And then there are times when I wonder, like, was I just asleep? Because that's just how relaxed I am. It kind of forces you to meditate almost, if that makes sense, because I mean, there are times when I feel like I'm between this state of, you know, here I am in reality, and okay, like, wow, what's going on around me? So it kind of takes you from that space of thinking about, okay, what do I need to get from the supermarket? What do I need to do? You know, what am I going to go on Amazon and buy today? It takes you out of that day-to-day mind racing, hustle and bustle, and helps you to relax. And so if I always say, you know, improve your mental health, improve your life. So if we can find a way to calm here, then we're going to automatically start to calm everywhere else. But I want to say to everyone that this is a matter of practice. This is not, I do something one time and oh, life is just great again. No, we incorporate things into our lives, just like whatever it is you do every single day. You eat every day. You stay hydrated every day. You find these tools that you incorporate. It becomes part of your lifestyle to just take care of yourself. And it really works. It really does. I mean, I'm telling you, acupuncture has helped me a great deal.
Okay. Yeah. So basically you need to incorporate it into your daily lives, like, oh, I'm gonna exercise, I'm gonna maybe listen to music and everything like that. So how do you, like, there's a lot of people at the mindset of like you said, psychotherapy, but I don't need therapy because it's like, it makes me like crazy pretty much. Like how do you people get like rid of that mindset? Like especially Black people, we just
Yeah.
don't want to do that.
Well, part of it is, and I like, so you can see this is I have on this shirt, Kevin Fisher's line, everybody versus stigma. And part of the reason that we don't want to go to therapy and we have this idea that it's for crazy people, or people look at us as being crazy or weak, is because of stigma. You know, we've been told that, you know, you don't tell strangers your business. You can go to church and get through this, or, you know, you just talk to me, I'm your friend. You know, you may hear that from a mother or father, you know, or just people in your grandmother, people in your life that are anti-therapy. But most of the people who are maybe anti-therapy or not pushing you to go there, even if you may need it, it's because they've never been. So you ask the question, how do we get rid of that mindset? Try it out. Even if you try it out one time. I've had people to tell me, I don't really need this. And then, I mean, I'm having to like push them out of my office because their time is up. Because once you go to somebody and you know that you're going to talk to them about something that, I mean, you're in a judgment-free zone, they're not going to call up your mom, your husband, your girlfriend or boyfriend and tell them what you talked about. That there's something just healing about that. So just go. I'm not saying sign up for 6 months or 6 years. I'm saying go one time and your life could change forever. And you'll probably you'll be an advocate. There are people who were anti-therapy and now they laugh because they're the biggest advocates. They're telling people therapy really works. Therapy really works. And so, you know, just do it one time. And I trust me, you'll become an advocate. And there's always energy everywhere. So you want to find the right person. Not everybody's personalities will mesh. And so if you go to one person and that person didn't work for you, trust me, there's somebody out here that will work for you.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
do it.
Right. Yeah. So It's a lot of people that like listen to people that's never done it before. It's like, how can you listen to someone that's never done it? Like, of course they're gonna tell you, oh, you don't need it, because they've never done it. So
Exactly. They have no clue. They don't know what you need because sometimes we take advice from people and we love our friends. We love our family members that try to give us all this unsolicited advice or sometimes it's solicited. But we take advice from people who maybe don't even know what they should do. They're still trying to figure out how to make things work. And so we have to consider the source sometimes. And you always know what to do. It's just a matter of taking some time, taking a step back, maybe just sitting with yourself and figuring out what feels right. If it feels right, then go for it. If it really feels bad, then maybe not go for it. But you practice it. You practice trusting yourself and you practice trusting that you know what you should and shouldn't do. But it's again, this all takes time because sometimes we don't trust our own guts because we're so used to other people telling us what we should do, and that's what works for us.
right. Have you ever like had like a struggle, like where it was just a stigma, like you said, any time in point of your life where you just had that mindset, like, oh, I'm not, I don't need therapy. Like, how did you overcome that stigma?
You know what? Since I've been for me, since I feel like I've always felt like there's something I need even before I actually like officially became a psychologist, I'll say. I felt like I was always like pro therapy or I'll say even pro self-care. There was something about like doing things to alleviate anxiety. Like I remember like during childhood being a sort of anxious child and I wasn't overtly anxious though. And that's something to look out for. I wasn't overtly anxious and it wasn't so disruptive to my life that anybody could really notice it. But I remember like worrying about things that I really didn't have to worry about. And so as I got older, I started to say, I have to do things to really learn how to like bring myself down and how to self manage because that therapist, I don't care how dedicated you are to therapy, that therapist or that person that you rely on may not be there, in the middle of the night if you're feeling anxious. So I've always been that person. I've always been pro therapy, but I've always been that person that felt like I need to develop some tools that I'll have on standby because I don't like to feel anxious, And so what I do even now as an adult, I find techniques that can be like relaxing. I find ways to, I incorporate deep breathing. If I find myself in a situation where I'm feeling like just overwhelmed, we can practice deep breathing anywhere. I don't care if you're on an airplane, if you're in a room full of people, you may not want to get up and start doing some like drastic exercises, but you can deep breathe and no one will even know what you're doing. And it can calm you like that. I mean, you can really find yourself coming down. And all it takes is a few deep breaths. And so I've always been that person to incorporate. I find myself now trying to tell people, just kind of pull people away from that stigma mentality because even not just as a professional, like being a psychologist, but just in general, because I really do find that the people who have the stigma mentality need the most help. So if you're somebody out here that has that, you have a lot to learn and you may be putting yourself in a situation where you're not getting the help you need, all because you have planted this seed or somebody else has planted the seed that I think it's like people think they're going to be seen as weak. And so, and I've never felt like that. I've always felt like, okay, so what we become anxious. What I like to share with people, I've always been an overthinker. And so sometimes, and I'm still an overthinker. So it's not a matter of getting rid of it. I've just learned to manage my overthinking. And so overthinking can cause anxiety. So it's also like knowing what your triggers are. Like, and so overthinking something is a trigger for me. And what I do is I find ways like, okay, stop. Like, what are the facts of this situation? What is it that you need to do for this situation? And what is it, what is the anticipated outcome, or what is the desired outcome? And so you have to find ways to constantly self-check. And that's what I do. I constantly self-check.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people, like you said, when you said people who don't want to seem as weak, I mean, just a little stuff like deep breathing, it helps. And, like I'm thinking my opinion, because people don't want to like be judged by other people. We got this social media out here, and people are like, people doing all types of crazy stuff.
Hmm.
People are always judging people on social media, like whether it's through the comments, and I think that's what they're thinking about. Like, hey,
Yeah. Sometimes, and speaking of social media, sometimes it is so important to just take a break from social media. You don't need to, first of all, if a topic is triggering for you, you're not obligated to comment. So if you know that there's a topic, and then just even if you feel your blood boiling while you're even in the process of commenting, just walk away.
right.
Walk away from your device, walk away from, and especially at nighttime. You don't need to be triggered like that at night, because what happens, sleep is already an issue for most of us. So if you're going back and forth, you're probably going to be up all night going back and forth, and then you're going to wake up the next morning and go back. And I mean, I've seen threads like this where people have gone back and forth literally all night. And I mean, I'm sure you guys have too.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And you can't
definitely.
tell me you feel good about that unless you're just a troll and this is what you do for a living. Then you may be saying things without even, you may be completely unbothered. But for the non-trolls, no, you're bothered and you're causing yourself unnecessary stress.
Yeah, I know. It's just, it can be really addicting, because I've gone back and, I've had trolls before, going back and forth, just through the comments, and it'd be like 200, 300 comments. But if you take like a break, just like one, like you said, a break, just one day out the week, that should help tremendously.
It should. I remember I used to comment on this. There was this one page. It was a pretty popular mental health page. And I actually, it's like I always attracted the trolls if I went to that page and commented. And then people started tagging me and stuff on that page. I don't know how that happened, but I started getting tagged as like the sort of, people wanted to know what did I think about. But it got to the point where I got so annoyed with the trolls because somebody would come in and say, well, you don't know anything, or, just things like that. And I had to block some people to make sure that they couldn't come to my own pages. And I just stopped even going to that site because I just got annoyed with it. Now, did I have to just stop going to the site? No, but I chose that for me because I guess I let the trolls overpower all the other. I just found it annoying because it would constantly happen. So I was like, okay, I don't need to deal with this.
What do you think people like? What is the deep rooted problem, that drives people to troll? I know some people do it for money and social media, but I'm talking about those people that are just, they're doing it, that's not doing it for money. Like I'm thinking like it's maybe in high school, maybe they didn't get a lot of attention in high school,
Yeah.
middle school or whatever, and they would like want to, oh, this social media, oh, I want to be seen now. So
Yeah, there are so many different reasons. Like some people do it strictly for fun and they want to know that they're getting somebody worked up. And no matter what reason they're doing it, they're benefiting from the attention that they get from trolling. But there's so many different reasons that they might do it. It may be like if you were bullied, now you're gonna turn the tables and you're gonna be the bully, you're gonna be the aggressor, and it's this sense of power. Like I can say whatever I want to say and nothing's going to happen to me. I mean, unless you're on a site that just blocks you, but these trolls find another way to get right back in. So they're gonna find a way to get in there. So, they feel empowered. We think it's sick, but they feel empowered because they know that people are getting angry and they're getting all this attention. Because just think, you make a comment and you have hundreds of other comments talking about how awful you are. It doesn't matter, because even that negative attention is attention, right? It's like somebody's paying attention to me. And
Right.
sometimes trolls are just unhappy and angry.
Yeah. Like when you said, I think it was a lot of suppressing like rules in high school, a lot of suppressing with their emotions with rule. You couldn't say anything crazy like that in high school. The system, you
Yes.
would get punished for that, expelled. And it's just like when you become an adult, it's like, okay, man, I can say all this stuff now and become rich or
Exactly. Yeah, I can say whatever I want. But people, and that's the reason why trolls, will have fake accounts, because we know in reality that that whole I can say whatever I want doesn't really fly, right? We can't really go on social media and say whatever we want, especially if you're somebody who has something to lose. Now you can create fake accounts, and if you're good enough to not get caught, then yeah, you can. But in reality, I just want to say, be careful about what you say on social media as just the average person, because you can't say whatever you want. We have people losing their jobs. We have like celebrities that lost their jobs because people went back and found things that they said on social media that they thought were racist, sexist, whatever it may be, and now they're out of a job. So be careful on social media. It may be tempting to sit behind that keyboard and just type away, but there could be some consequences. Now, it's not saying that you can't give your opinions, but be careful about, doing a little too much bashing or just thinking I can say whatever I want. That no longer exists.
right, right. So yeah, there was something else I wanted to get into, like people that are like just overwhelmed. I know it's inflation, managing the business, social affairs, and like, anxiety. Like, how do people manage that stress in these times of inflation?
Yeah, that stress is real. That really is, and it affects our lives. I mean, finances and bills have always been high at the top of the list of stressors, but make your life as manageable as possible. So if you are in a situation where you're already stressed out about bills, try not to add any more bills to your life. Figure out what your needs are. And I mean, I know that these things are easier said than done because overspending is a real thing also, but figure out what your actual needs are and do something like sometimes we have to compartmentalize and we have to figure out, okay, so what do I need to do? What's manageable? What can I get paid today versus what do I pay later? Sometimes what we do, I read like about credit, like we know credit card debt is probably some of the worst debt, right, that we can have. And
Right.
so because we have the high interest rates, and let me put a disclaimer on this, I am not a financial expert. So, this is just, I try to find things that work for me. But one thing I read about credit cards is that sometimes what we tend to do is that we'll pay, like you may have multiple credit cards and you're paying all of this money. You may have the same amounts that you're paying on each one, instead of paying maybe the most money to that one that carries the higher interest rate, and then going to those other ones and saying, I'm going to put a little less here. So just find ways to make it manageable. I'm not going to say hire a financial advisor because financial advisors cost, right? So that's adding on to your bills. Again, there are so many free resources out here now that we can receive the help that we need. Try to have your bills all in, one place to know what your bills are for the month and what you need to do. What do you need, or how much money you need to pay? Do you need to get a second job, or do you have a side hustle? do you need to, are you able to work more hours? But there are ways that we can manage. Sometimes what we do is we take everything, all of our issues, and we put it into one box and we try to find one fix for everything in there. And when we can't find that quick, simple fix, we become overwhelmed and we walk away from all of it. So place things in categories of importance. I'm going to handle this today. I'm going to handle that tomorrow. Because if you don't have the money to pay all of your bills, unfortunately, something's going to have to wait. So what's most important right now? And that comes from anything, bills, relationships. Figure out what is it that you are capable of doing right now in the moment, and then tomorrow you do that again. Life is a constant assessment, right? And it doesn't mean you're taking hours to assess the situation, but I believe in setting intentions first thing in the morning. So when I get up, I try to do some meditation, and I think of, what do I want to accomplish in this day? It doesn't mean I'm not going to be flexible to like deviate from that plan a little bit, but I do think of, what is it that I want to accomplish in this day? What's already on the list that I need to get done? And then I kind of work from there, because that way life and people and texts and emails are not controlling me. I'm managing the situation. And that's so important. So I would say, do that, because you need to be in charge of your life at all times.
Right. So you think it's like more important to cut back rather than, of course, not add more stuff. Do you think it's easier to cut back or just manage what you already have?
Easy? No. And I really don't like to tell people cut back. So, I'm a prosperity type of person, right? And so I try to encourage people to manage their expectations and manage, and do what works for you without creating a small space or a small mindset, right? So cutting back is one thing, but if you know that you want more from life and you want more for your life, then you find ways to get there. I really don't believe in being in a position where we live our lives to go to work, pay bills, and whatever else you may do that's considered obligations, because this is what you're supposed to do as adults. I believe that we need to do things that are self-fulfilling, and self-fulfilling things may mean starting that business. So maybe working on that business may help you generate more income than your day-to-day job that you're doing. Now, and let me say, not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur either. So
Right.
sometimes there's like, you may have skills that have just outgrown that current job that you're in. And, if you're honest with yourself, maybe you haven't even you've complained about your current job, but you haven't done anything active to find another career. So I don't want to say just put yourself in a position where you're cutting back and you are living in a state of sort of deprivation, but figure out what it is. Don't add anything. Don't add more to your plate right now than you can handle, because you know your tolerance, right? If you're stressed out from what you already have, what do you think is going to happen if you add something else that really is more of that's eating up your funds rather than helping you to generate more funds? So, again, constantly assess it. So I don't want you to cut back so much that you say, okay, this is all I'm going to have, and I'm going to sort of live this life of what you may consider poverty, because that is that's sort of a relative term, subjective, depending on the person. But don't be afraid to want more, but also don't be afraid to go after more. It's an active process. But for now, don't add anything to your plate if you're already figuring out how to manage what's already there.
Right. Right. Have you ever how did you overcome, if you ever had a situation where it's just everything was just all over the place and overload? Did you cut back or did you just just manage what you already have?
I try to manage what I already have. I'm practical. I think that's just my personality. I'm a practical type of person. I love nice things. And like people have always told me that I make things look easy. Okay. So, but it doesn't mean that it is easy. But
Mhm.
I do, and I think it's just because I do have a practical mindset. So I'm not one to go out and buy things that I can't manage. I mean, I still have student loans. That's something that I pay regularly. And I believe again, and I take time to set intentions for what I want in my life. So I don't always focus on how I'm going to get it. And again, that's more of a spiritual mindset. It may be rooted in meditation or what some of your beliefs are, but I do believe in like law of attraction. And so I have been in a situation where I've been overwhelmed, like, oh my God, I got to pay this and I got to pay that. But I also I figure out ways that, like, what is it that I want in my life and how lucrative is this for me? Does it align with my passion? And I find that doing things like that really helped me to get to where I am now. If I told you I knew the how, like if I told you that when I was in school and when I was in a doctoral program and I had was getting student loans, if I just thought about how I was going to pay those off later, I would be lying because I was not thinking about the how I'm going to pay. I just knew that it would work. I knew that I would be in a situation where I would be able to handle what came my way because I was doing something that I was passionate about. And so that's what I would, encourage anybody to do. Figure out like why you're doing what you're doing. Why are you spending money on this? Is it something that drives your passion? Or is it something that's just kind of frivolous that you're just doing for the moment? And I really don't do a lot of frivolous things that I'm just doing for the moment. Remember, I said I'm an overthinker. So when I'm doing something, I've usually given it thought, especially if I'm doing something that's going to cost me money, because
Right.
I don't really like to have to backtrack and say, well, I need to take all of this stuff back because I bought it and I really couldn't afford it. I don't like that type of backtracking. It's just not, it doesn't work for me emotionally. And
Right.
so I just try to figure out I figure out what works for me and I incorporate that as a lifestyle.
Right. Just like sometimes it's not the social media. I'm thinking like social media, it drives people to like they want that microwave success. And it's very, it's an illusion. And if
Yeah.
you just like sometimes if you downgrade, your lifestyle, not cutting back, but like you know how you can have the same thing as just cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, have you ever done anything like that?
I try not to, again, I try not to look at it as downgrading. I mean, I have this thing where if I guess if it is a downgrade, by the time I'm doing that, I've already justified in my mind, like I've created a situation in my own head that, you know, this is not a downgrade. This is probably better than what I've had before. And so I try not to, and I'm not that person. I'm not doing it for the gram. I'm not doing things for social media in general. I try to live a life that I can live up to, that if you met me in person, you're not saying, oh yeah, she went and bought all this stuff to wear, to pretend like she was here when she wasn't really there. I think when you do those types of things, you're causing yourself more anxiety probably.
Right,
Like
right,
pretending to be in places that you aren't and just all these sorts of things. I don't do a lot of that. So I think I like remove some of that pressure from my life because I don't try to pretend to be something that I'm not even for social media. Yeah, because you can find yourself in a lot of trouble emotionally if that's what you're doing.
okay. And yeah, I know we're approaching our time limit here. And if anyone else had any questions, comments, we can go on to, we'll have another live in like another week. So yeah, thank you, Dr. Michelle, for your time and showing everyone your opinions and talking with us. So
No, thank you. This is always necessary. And so we just, we have to keep the conversation going. The more we talk about our own mental health. And let me say, let's not, sometimes when we're talking about being an advocate for mental health, sometimes we say things like mental health is a real problem. No, mental health is not a problem. Mental health is a good thing to have. Just because mental is attached to a word doesn't make it problematic. That's just a description. So mental health is not a problem at all. Sometimes what people are really speaking of is mental illness. And that's what we address in my business. We address mental illness. We help you improve your life to live a healthier life. So mental health is not a bad thing. So, be an advocate for mental health, be an advocate for overcoming mental illness and behavioral health conditions. So understand mental health is a good thing, like your physical health is a good thing.
right. All right. All right, we're gonna make a hard stop here and we will be on later for the next time.
All right.
All right, thank you.